So those of you who attended the virtual seminar back in February, we gave a quick little crash course on the history of the Muny and kind of how we got to this project and this process. So as you're all aware, the Muny's been around for over 100 years now. They put on all their own shows. They produce everything here. So that is quite an undertaking. So they went into this second century capital campaign in about 2018. The first phase of that was the stage project, which we were not involved with. And then at the tail end of that, we worked on the renovation of the existing buildings. There are a cluster of 3 buildings that make up the campus. So we're standing obviously in the pergola out front of what we call Building 1, which is mainly administrative spaces, but through our process, we activated the lower level with gathering spaces, actor spaces. Building 2 will be actually where we start, which is over on the west side of the campus. We call that the patron building or the carpenter's building. Patron spaces on the top floor, carpenter spaces below. And then Building 3 sits on the east side of the campus, which we call the artist building. So that has become the hub for all the dressing rooms, costume shop, all in one space. So our process was just following them around and listening to them essentially for an entire summer season, really getting to know how they tick inside and out, watching them, watching the shows, backstage, front of house, talking with as many people as we could, finding out what works, what doesn't. And through that process, letting them tell us what they really needed. It was more qualitative than quantitative. At the outside, I think most people thought they needed more space, but in listening to them and then analyzing what we had to work with, we really discovered that it had more to do with reusing and finding the efficiencies in the space that they had, and then kind of moving things around when we needed to, or just cleaning things out where else we needed to. So essentially, there were 4 overarching principles to the work that we did. So the first one, the systems. We had to overhaul all of the systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. The sewers used to be combined, so separating sanitary and storm sewers. All new systems, more efficient VAV, more individual control, entire new electrical system, et cetera. So, I mean, that part of the project in and of itself really was a very big piece. The second main thing we focused on was improving adjacencies. So when I talk about that artist building, it used to be that the costume shop was in a different building from the dressing rooms. So that was a big move, bringing those things together so that someone's not having to run a rack of costumes across the campus. The third thing was increasing community and connectivity. So previously, there were a lot of little siloed spaces everywhere. You couldn't necessarily get from point A to point B. In this building in particular, the first floor, there were a lot of doors. There's still a lot of doors, but you only ever went into one singular space. So we looked at ways that we could connect those more, connect across different buildings. And you'll see that in particular in this building and that lower level where we opened up an internal corridor that we connect things. And then the last big point was improving accessibility and wayfinding. So if you all kind of see behind me, this is the biggest piece of that, a new entry to the administrative building and the front of campus. Previously, you kind of had to find your way through these gates over here, and you went down and you hit a little button and waited for a green light. I told that story in February, and then you walked in and there was no one there, and you had to figure out that you had to go upstairs. So the new entry, and we're excited that it's not quite done, as you can see, but that you can really see how it's taken shape. You can tell more where you need to go. There's an elevator, so we can get everyone where they need to go in this building. So really excited for that particular piece. So I think that concludes my little pre-show. So those of you online, we're going to start walking around. We are going to head this way. In general, I'll kind of talk about what we're looking at and our spaces, but it's more for everyone to kind of see and peek through. Yeah, so anyway, follow along, peek in. The Muny does ask that everyone wears a mask, except for me, because I'm projecting in grand theatrical fashion. Let me know if anyone has a question along the way, and we'll handle it then, but I'm going to head this way up the West Pergola. That's listening to me now. Megan's going to pop into the spaces for everyone. All right. So feel free, I'll kind of say a few words and then you kind of poke in the different rooms that we have here. So this is that piece we call the patron building. So we have restrooms that are used during the show. A nursing suite that used to be buried backstage and they'd have to take people in the middle of the show into what should be a secure area. So pulled that out here. We've got first aid that also used to be buried. This is a spot where accessibility needed to be addressed. There used to be you can see the yellow paint, that was just a step. So we created this little bit more of a porch that ramps down to the other end there so that we have better accessibility to these spaces. So yeah, feel free, just kind of poke your head in, check things out. Maybe not the most glamorous spaces, but they're very vital and the community's happy to have them over here. For those of you who are kind of on this end, one other thing that we added is this new coiling door. And it's one of those ones that has a man door in it. It's kind of really cool. I've never seen anything like it before. But this allows them to get back and forth from where they're doing rehearsals on this platform more easily to the backstage. So bring set pieces, props, etc. Yeah, from the backstage area. Hi. Thank you. I said your name, but welcome. All right, well, we'll head on. We're going to kind of backtrack a little bit and head this way. We didn't lose anybody. All right, so those of you here in presence with me, welcome to Backstage officially. So you're standing in the area that they build all the sets. So this is the carpenter area. It's really cool. This we won't go back here, but it slides under the stage itself where a lot of their machinery, equipment, etc. is. Little note, the River de Pear, I think mentioned before, runs directly under this campus. So it's back there. They pretty recently had to replace the slabs and things, and it runs. We see the split between, this is Orthline Hall that HOK worked on a few years ago, and the side of Building 3. That little gap, that's where the River de Pear runs in between, and then it actually runs under Building 3, the costume shop. So yeah, that's fun. But this space over here is the carpenter break room. So another spot, feel free to wander through here. I think you'll probably have to go in and out this same door since they've got their area closed off here. There is another door, so just be careful if you come out that other door, you may get stuck in Tim's area over here. So feel free to come on and check things out in here. You kind of wander back and forth. Essentially, just a long hallway. It used to be sort of a cluster of a lot of little spaces. It definitely needed a little TLC. But you can see the locker configuration. So the Muny staff, the workers are here 24/7 basically. So they'll go from building sets during the day to then being the stagehands all night. So having a place to come in, stay cool, take care of your things, take a shower before the evening's performance. So we have a series of accessible single restrooms before, with gang showers previously, and it's a little more gender neutral here as well. So as they're increasing female carpenters, et cetera, we're able to handle people.
When was this first built?
Oh gosh, I should know that. The 30s, Megan, do you remember the original date? Yeah, 30s, yeah. I'm not sure. Honestly, we don't know as much of the history as we probably should. And I think the individual buildings were built about the same time. But the administrative building came first, and it's interesting to see, like, originally that was the main entrance through, and at some point that was closed in and brought people around the back instead.
I think the building drawings we saw started basically in the early 40s.
Okay, Michael thinks our drawing set started in the early 40s. Thanks, Michael. All right. Head out. I think, they were able to escape out the back. All right, you guys found the secret hatch. That's good. All right, we'll head this way. So we'll just stop here for a second because it's obviously a really cool view. Not everyone gets to see this. Yeah. So obviously post-season, there's some things missing. Normally they have the big video wall and the backdrops, et cetera. So this is a really cool view right now to see backstage to stage and seats. So this area up over here is where they're painting the sets. I was just mentioning to our online viewers, the shed roof structure there behind us, that's where they paint the booms. So those are the large, like what's wrapping the structure here, become the backdrop of the set. So they actually paint those on the ground. And then they're taking a small drawing like we would to scale, and then they're painting on these large booms. It's pretty amazing to watch. And then that's what becomes the backdrops for the sets. So then they're painting set pieces up here, props, etc. at night. So you see this structure here. We were hoping to do some modifications up here, but unfortunately budget didn't allow. But this structure is really important. They don't use it as much for painting of the sets anymore, but it's a structure to tie off the sets at night. If you think about some of the storms that we have and things, they got to tie everything down back here. So that's some of these structures, and you'll see, there's a chain over there, anchors at various points back here. Megan, I can tell you, and if you've had the chance to experience a show backstage, or if you do in the future, it's amazing. It is a well-oiled machine. You have to watch where you are. So we had Tracy S. Myers with us, the production manager. It was like, it's kind of like mom in the car keeping kids safe, because sets just go flying. The booms go flying across, things that they were able to upgrade with the stage itself. So definitely very interesting. So you may know the history of the trees. There were big old trees that got removed. I don't know as much of the finite history and details of that, but with some of the stage upgrades and just making sure that we could, they could propel the sort of backdrop the trees are really important to the Muny shows. They kind of just enrich it and make it that much more of an interesting set. So they were able to salvage most of the trees that were on site before. They've gotten used for different wood pieces throughout the campus. When we get to the boardroom, that piece in particular was designed and built by Martin Goebel. We worked with him on that, and so it's using the old board table, which was also made from the trees on site, but also took some of the harvested wood from the trees that came down here. And then, of course, they have replanted. So we'll head into building 3 here. So the artist building. Upstairs, we'll just hop in this room because it is somewhat segregated at the end here through these purple doors. This is Video Village. So a lot of what happens with the stage, with automating, the set pieces, et cetera, operating the video wall is running out of this space here. So we can, if you're close to the end, you can hop up the stairs or this ramp here. The Muny breaks down everything. Obviously, they put it back up for this season. So this building operates as storage. So you'll see the big black pieces, that's lights, the pieces of the stage, et cetera, they're being stored inside. But this is a space where it's another chance where we got a dedicated, accessible restroom. This is another team that is here nonstop during the summer. A new feature that they didn't have before, we have a green screen. So the Muny, again, they're producing everything, right? They're making the videos that are shown on the wall. So it's just another spot that they're able to produce some of that content in-house on site. And you see there's a lot of stuff in here.
So did they move the orchestra pit?
So that was part of the stage project. So we were not involved with that, but it is under the stage now. Yeah, so this used to be an orchestra related, I think the locker rooms there, but that is all under the stage right now.
Do you know how deep or?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Good luck.
Sorry, Amanda, we couldn't hear that question. Can you repeat that question?
They're asking how deep the orchestra pit underneath the stage is, but I am not sure how far down that goes.
Gotcha, thank you.
Sarah, if you know, you can put it in the chat.
We're gonna go upstairs.
I do not know the answer to that either.
I'm sure Tim is around here somewhere. We might be able to. He's sort of straggling behind me. All right, so those of you online, we are walking into building 3. These are our saloon doors. Don't want to hit anyone with the saloon doors. Feel free to just sort of wander around. We'll eventually go out the other end down there.
Oops, sorry. Thought I saw you over there.
Confusing mirrors. Mirror on the wall.
Well, I can tell you right now.
Are you going to show us where the stars dressing room?
Yeah, so these first 2 here kind of go in order of priority, right? Closest to the stage. So yeah, these 2 are the star dressing rooms. This one has a fully accessible bathroom. The rest either have their own restroom or they might just have a sink in the room itself. Some are intended to serve 2 principal actors or actresses, just depending on the size of the cast.
And the part where you said where the star has their.
Yeah, the star. So the 2 largest are these 2. That first one, that is the star. I believe they did allow them to write on the walls again.
Somebody signed right there.
So you're saying everything was tighter before?
Yeah, can you believe that? Yeah. And this was about how many dressing rooms can we fit in. So in this building, we did push the north wall as far as we could to the north so that we could capture a little bit more space. We blew out anything interior. So it used to be all 4-inch CMU just about everywhere. So this hallway, I think, Megan, did the hallway end up wider, but we just shifted it, or was it? Yeah, because the hallway is really important for during a show, because you think about, you have all the actors, but then you have the people dressing them, people doing makeup, etc. So the dressers will sit in the hallway. And so it becomes very activated and people running back and forth. This is a saloon style door, swings both ways so that people can freely ingress and egress. Yeah, so yes, which it's interesting. I haven't been able to talk to them. They had said they weren't going to allow that. They were going to try to like get focused areas, but then I don't know if it just started or if they said, yeah, just go ahead. You'll see that there are a number of dressing rooms. Yeah. Yeah, the big room is over here. Yeah, so we got to sit back here during the day, and it's interesting, what's happening during the day versus the evening too. So obviously the rehearsals during the day. There's a wig room which used to just be tucked in at the end. Well, yeah, that's actually the laundry room. I think I've said, I don't know if Megan agrees with me, that's actually my favorite space in this whole project, because the poor laundry team used to have 2 machines in 2 different buildings that were just in hallways. And now they have a whole room with with everything they could possibly want. There's one before. I'll make sure I'm not hitting it. Okay, I'm gonna close that. So a little bit more at the lay of the land. So we've got the individual star principal dressing rooms, obviously along this east wall. So they go from sort of single star, big accessible bathroom. You kind of work your way down, if you will. Most of them are intended to be 2 actors as you go along. I think we ended up squeezing in, maybe it's these 2. There was a combined one, they split them apart. So it's like, how many actors can we accommodate if they've got a big show? So squeezing as many as we could. On this side of the hall are big, more the chorus, supporting roles are in these spaces over here. So previously, the women's dressing room was upstairs, the men's dressing room was downstairs, and there was sort of this knuckle here that was a flexible dressing room. So it was those actors who are maybe not quite the principal, but they need a little bit more attention. Or if it had a large children's cast, maybe they use that space for that. So our goal was getting everything in one space on one floor. So we were able to do that. And then I mentioned, if you didn't hear, we did push the north wall further to the north to capture as much space as we could. So this side of the hall is set up with these 3 dressing rooms. There's 2 large dressing rooms that each have a shower, restroom at either end. And then there's a space in between that's, again, for that knuckle, that flexible space. And then we've got garage doors in between those. So depending on the size and makeup of a certain cast, say it's Annie and they're all a bunch of little girls, they can take out as much as they want. Or if they have that show that's got just as many females as males, and then this sort of like in between principal, they can close those doors and set it up that way. So just trying to get as much flexibility as possible, different shows and how things go. Am I missing anything important, Megan? This is kind of a critical building, a lot going on in here. This little room over here, wireless. So, all the actors have their microphones, their remote control, right? For radio frequency. That previously was kind of in with Video Village, so it was segregated, so they would have to run back and forth. So we're able to get that space in here so they can handle actors in the same hall. If you didn't hear me talking about the laundry room, that's actually my favorite space, because that team, they had one machine that was downstairs. They had another machine, we only had 2. The other one was over in the costume shops, an entirely different building, and they're running constantly during the day. So, and all 24 hours a day, basically, because at night, they're helping everyone get dressed, get their costumes, etc. But during the day, they got to get those costumes, launder them, get them back. So they were having to drag the costumes building to building. So they're right here now. And they've got a lot of machines in one place. So they're just functioning here. They're not, their exercise program is gone, I guess, but I think they're a lot happier. Hopefully they're a lot happier with everything in one place. So we are going to head this way. If you haven't had a chance to peek in, please do. We're going to go out the north end and then downstairs. All right, you can just head out. There's a stair and we'll go down that stair. So this is obviously the costume shop. So this is the space that used to be directly across in the other building. And this used to be what's called the canteen and the kitchen. So those two spaces we essentially swapped. So when we get over to building 1, you'll see the canteen kitchen gathering area is now in building 1. So this is now directly below where we're taking costumes. From an accessibility standpoint, this building kind of already had a fair amount of accessibility in place. There are ramps that we obviously traversed on the back, and then there's an elevator in Orthwine just next to us. So where we came out upstairs, there is a connector to that building. So they are able to get those costumes up and down and back and forth in this space. This is another space. We pushed this wall again forward as far as we could. The stair, it's the same opening, but we reconfigured it. So again, we could push the wall upstairs as far forward. There used to be kind of a little patio deck area up there. So we just took as much usable space as we could, dropped in a new metal stair in that corner up there. So this is basically another space that we blew everything out. This building, if you'll remember from February, I think it was in the midst of concrete restoration. So once they started pulling things out, there was a lot of the concrete that just needed some attention. So it looks a lot better now. We ended up pouring an entirely new floor slab in here, partially just because it ended up needing it, but we were taking out a good section of it to route the electrical. Again, with the river and site constraints, there's just not a lot of available land. So again, being creative with where we could bring things. So that was redone in here. I heard enough comments. I think the costume people are pretty happy. They had a pretty good space before, but this is just a little bit lighter and brighter. And this is definitely a space where shout out to Envision Lighting Design. They were very specific on their needs in this space because they need to be able to obviously see what they're sewing, but you've got to be able to color render appropriately for what they're seeing here and then what's seen on the stage. So really giving those much flexibility on all the lighting throughout here. This obviously open costume shop, and then we've got various offices. So our manager, our wardrobe master and mistress, and then a designer space. And then on this side, there are 2 fitting rooms, and that was another spot where we put in one of those garage doors. Again, depending on the size of the cast and the type of cast, they may do sort of a mass fitting where all of the chorus is wearing essentially the same thing, so they can kind of just loop them through there as quickly as possible. So having it as one big room versus if they're doing maybe those star fittings, they can put the that door down and just focus on individuals in those spaces. As you get to the back, then we have some of our other supporting spaces. There's sort of an L off here to the right. That is a staging area. So the one piece of the wardrobe costume shop that isn't in this building is directly across in building 1, where it's a storage space. It's an intake space. So as they're receiving costumes, a lot of them are rented a lot of the time. So they get these big crates, they'll store them in there. They'll bring them over, the intake personnel sorts, gets things organized. They can stage them in the space off to the right. They can pool things to different seamstresses. And then to the point they're ready to go upstairs, they go in racks upstairs. Further down the hall, there's obviously a break room for our team here. There's a small space that's a craft room. That's another one. I'm very happy for that person. They used to be tucked in a little corner and had to have everything in that space. And he spray painted shoes outside, and now there's a spray booth in the space back here. So the room that's to the left, you see it looks like a big soup kettle. That's actually where they dye costumes. So there's that certain equipment in there all has to do with costumes, even though it may look like food service equipment. We're gonna head back out this way. I think I have most everyone here. So when we're going through this building, it'll kind of be more of a continuous path. I'll say things as we go along. But I was mentioning the one wardrobe related room that's not in the costume shop is this room. You're welcome to peek in there. It's basically a storage room. We're going to go in here. So we're actually going to sneak into kind of the back entry to the kitchen. And then we'll take a route to the west end along the first floor. We'll go upstairs, back over to the east end and end in the boardroom. So we'll come kitchen. This space through here is the gathering area. So when I talked about, again, the kitchen, canteen, gathering, that used to be right over there. That moved over here. We put in this garage door, and we wanted to have visibility inside to outside. So during the summer, they can open that up. People can freely flow back and forth. Or if it's a bad weather day, they can put that down, still have visual connection inside to out. So go ahead and head in.
Hello.
Hi, Rena, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Taking a tour.
Got a cluster of people, yeah. CSI, a lot of AIA members. How's everything going?
Just fine, just, still wrapping things up from the season, so.
Can imagine. So we're sneaking through your kitchen.
We're kind of in winter mode now.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. I got distracted. Yeah, headed this way. You can get a peek of the entry. Those of you online, Megan's coming shortly behind me. You're welcome. So this is their painters. So this is one of those spots where you see there's a door to the outside. So our artists who are painting those booms were directing that. This used to be one of those spaces where you could only get into it from the outside. So this is that corridor that I mentioned. that didn't exist before. So we cut this across the building to connect the inside. It used to be you just kind of came into different spaces off of the south side of the building. And then as we get to this end, the east end down here, we really tried to locate all of our actor-related spaces on this main floor. So it's kind of the closest, easiest way on their route as they're running around between rehearsal platforms, fitting. There's a little lounge space down here and up here. Drivers. Oh, you get a question. Obviously, a little break area that is right off of the corridor. So just trying to get things easy and on the path and connected. And then we've got a couple more fully accessible restrooms with showers, which leads us then into our stage managers. So this is the team that's running things, and this is another one of those teams that's here nonstop. So reason for the showers to be located close to them. They used to be kind of hidden upstairs. So whatever happens with an actor throughout the day, let's say someone hurts themselves, they would have to run upstairs, get some ice, find the Band-Aids, etc. So getting them on the main floor again, like quickly accessible to where the actors are rehearsing, etc. And then down here is the rehearsal room. So this has a sprung floor. The rehearsal room used to be upstairs, so basically directly upstairs from here. We moved it downstairs again so that we can have as many of the actor spaces, really all the actor spaces in the same area. But upstairs, it was this big chunk of what is the administrative floor. So by moving it down, that opened up a lot of space for offices. And then because this is an assembly space, we have a new ramp and emergency egress. So we do have to backtrack a little. Well, you know what? We'll go up out here.
Amanda, we have a question from the chat asking about the floor finish. Is it polished concrete topping? It's for the previous floor. It's not the rehearsal room, but it was difficult to tell in the video.
Yes, we typically have sealed concrete throughout a lot of the spaces, just keeping it. And you'll notice also the ceilings. We went with exposed ceilings, leaving the structure exposed in a lot of places. So just again, ease of use and cleanability is important. All right, so my group, I know Megan will be shortly behind me for those of you online. So we're now in the administrative area. So this end of the building really didn't have any offices. As I was saying, this was the rehearsal room, the actors lounge, the stage managers used to be up here. So we were able to push and expand the office staff. It has grown a lot in recent years. So they just kind of kept finding a nook and a cranny to put people. So allowing them to expand down this hallway, a new open break room. That was another spot where they just kind of had a little nook and cranny before. So activating another spot for community connectivity. Sound designers, and there's a sound booth. So there's a couple of these little design spaces. On the third floor, we'll pop up there briefly. It's really just, there's only a third floor at the center of this building, and that's the designer's loft. So that had a very confined footprint. We did a little addition to move the video designers up there that kind of dovetailed into our new entry, but the sound design team did stay on this floor. So that's that space. So offices, new big restrooms along this end of the hallway. So I got a question from online, how COVID affected the overall process. So our design process was pre-COVID. So the Muny had to make the decision, obviously. They decided to postpone their season. So construction started, I believe it was about August of 2020. And then with the goal of trying to have everything complete before the next season started now, this summer season was reduced to the 5 shows, and it was pushed, as many of you know, a little bit further into the summer than normal. So that helps the construction schedule a little bit, but obviously some of those things like the concrete restoration that we ran into and soil conditions out front caused those. They were still able to get building 3 wrapped up, but that was tight. We had some, overtime hours that were added into the project to make sure that those really critical spaces were complete. The entries, sort of an added bonus. Everyone's really excited to use it, but they had been able to get by without that. But Tarleton is back on site now. They're able to get back on October 1st. And so hoping in the very near future that we'll have all those little pieces, punch lists, et cetera, finished out. Yeah, so this is really kind of we didn't have a lot of additions, as we said. This is one little piece of addition with the tied into that entry tower. And then building 3 with the costume shops, pushing those out. But take a peek. I really like how the top of the entry turned out. Great views, lots of light. I'll trade places. For the elevator? Yes, yeah. And so there's new video design. So we didn't do this part over here.
Did you go look at any other theaters?
No, we didn't. We didn't take any field trips, but the Muny definitely informed us and our team. So that's Tracy's office. She did and brought back a lot of great ideas that she shared with us. Some of her partners across the country. All right, we'll head back downstairs.
There's really no other theater like that.
What's that?
So there's really no.
Oh yeah, it's true. There's no other Muny. No, we're gonna head that way, thank you. Yes, table is like the carrot at the end of the stick.
Somebody already bought the door there, refrigerator.
Yeah, I brought that in. I haven't found it online yet. Here we go.
This is a tree.
Yes. Pieces.
I don't want to spoil it.
The big finish. But we're ending here in the boardroom. So I mentioned the trees. This is the table that Martin Goebel designed. We're very happy with how it turned out. I think it's beautiful, and I love his story behind it. He really knew this wood and these trees and harvested it and kept it in his shop. The prior table was more just the natural oak, and so everyone's kind of used to that. And I think we all thought at first that it would be like that, but Martin, being the craftsman that he is, and he knew the wood and the imperfections that he had. So this was a process, and I don't know all the lingo, et cetera, but I think it was oxidizing it. So he basically just kind of wiped this magical solution on it, and it turned the wood this beautiful, deep black charcoal, but still allows you to see a lot of this beautiful graining and just delicate kind of the stringing, which maintained that more natural oak color in it. So ideas behind this table, that these buildings and the era that they're from have this subtle Art Deco theme to them, certainly out in the pergola in the front. There's a lot of rectilinear lines throughout the buildings, but there are these moments of curves and softness. So I think this table and the design complements that very well. Subtle curves at the end of the table and the stringing, but kind of this interesting chevron pattern that's interlaid as well. And then we carried that up into the ceiling. It's a simple space, but just a few little details. So this executive wing, we didn't initially have in the project. Sort of midway in, they said, we really can't have this not be done with everything else. So rushed to kind of put the design, et cetera, together. A lot of it sort of just fell into place, but this room in particular, it used to sit, take this whole box and rotate it this way. And so it only had windows and views out to the pergola to the east. So, and it was sort of hidden back away, a little bit more private. So by placing it at the end, a more democratic, everyone can get to it if they need to or want to, and positioning it kind of east to west, you've got both the view to the park and the view to backstage. So nice spot to end on.